But it is 8:30, so I'm going to get started. And I want to welcome everyone to the inaugural week of Land System Science. And so this idea, for those of you who are just joining us, was it's our first time we've ever tried to do this, and it was a way of trying to bring the whole GLP community online in our off years when we're not having an open science meeting. And the sort of gestalt or idea behind this kind of meeting is that it be community led and it be global by design and experimental. So we're still definitely going to be working out the just all the little wrinkles this year, but we're really looking forward to getting everyone's feedback at the end of the week and seeing how we can continue to build on this model. So all of the sessions that we're having for this online meeting are organized by and for GLP members, and with a big input from our working groups and our community members, some of our SSC members and fellows, and nodal offices. And before I um, turn it over to Laura, I just wanted to say also thank you to everyone here for being here across time zones and different kinds of institutions and regions. We have early career folks here. We have some of our fellows here. And we're a community with so many different kinds of people and ways of working. And so truly everyone brings something quite unique to this massive network that we have. And we hope, that this week of land system science can help kind of help invigorate and kind of keep this network alive and moving, and that we hold in our minds that this is really a broader conversation and a way to build connections for you throughout the week. And we invite leadership from across the GLP, and I'll get into that a little bit more about how GLP runs, but just so you know that like everybody is welcome to lead in GLP. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Laura Vang Rasmussen, our co-chair, who's going to help frame the driving reason for why we work and how we do what we're doing and what we're trying to achieve as a network for land system science.
So welcome to this week of Land System Science. And before we dive into all the exciting events that are going to happen throughout the week, then I thought it would be a good moment to actually reflect a bit on why we need land system science at all. And the obvious answer, and one that I often fall back on, is simply that the world's biggest challenges, such as the biodiversity crisis or food insecurity and malnutrition, those crises, they really come down to how we use the land. And these crises, they cannot be tackled by any single discipline. But although this type of answer in my head would be more than sufficient to justify the need for land system science, then I think many of us have experienced that other people are kind of questioning what land system scientists actually do. So, is it like environmental science? Is it social science? Is it like geography? Is it food security, ecology, remote sensing? The list really goes on. And I really dread this question when people say, okay, what is actually your field of expertise? And I do because this question tends to focus on what you're not instead of what land system scientists actually do or contribute with. So, together with co-chair Rachel Garrett and then former co-chair Naveen Ramankuti and executive director Ariane de Beaumont, and then also our leader of the Early Career Network, Sophia Nani, then we wrote this piece earlier this year on some of the tensions that come with pursuing a career within the field of land system science. And what continues to puzzle me is this. That is that like most academic structures, they are still organized around relatively narrow disciplinary perspectives, even as we know that the world's biggest challenges, they do actually demand interdisciplinary solutions. So in my research group here at University of Copenhagen, we work on how forest and trees can contribute to people's food security and nutrition. And I can honestly say that there is absolutely no way that we can do this type of research with any single discipline. So then the question is, how do we change these narrow disciplinary perspectives? And I think an important step is really to harness interdisciplinarity rather than to shy away from it. But in writing the piece that I just mentioned, then it became very clear to us that harnessing interdisciplinarity, it's actually not always as easy as it may sound. I have chosen three quotes from fellow land system scientists in our broader community to illustrate this. So one person was actually asked, does that interdisciplinary doctoral degree even count as a legitimate academic credential? And another one was told, this research isn't science. And then I know that many of us have been told that our research doesn't really fit into a specific science foundation's remit. This still happens quite often when science foundations ask for either social science proposals or a natural science research proposal. So, where does that actually leave land system science and land system scientists? I would say that it leaves us in need of what I would call a home. All researchers simply need a home where they feel that they belong. And the GLP is that home for all of us who study land. And I would like to flag a few things about the GLP that I find quite unique. So, firstly, we have a science plan, which is a very collaborative roadmap of interdisciplinary research priorities. And the shared science plan that can actually be quite rare in academia where there is competition for resources and recognition. And that competition, it often makes scientists reluctant to share ideas. Then second, we have our early career network that is led by Sophia and Wimby. And then we also have 15 different working groups which have organized many of the sessions throughout this week of land system science. And finally, we have our nodal offices, and there will be a session also on that structure. So I will end by returning to the broader question that I posed at the start. Why do we need land system science? And this week, I hope we can together reflect on something that has been on my mind lately. And that is whether AI is actually changing the value of something that has always been at the core of land system science, and that is synthesis research. So when I teach my students about land system science, I often use a figure that you see here on the left side of the slide from the well-known Lambang and Geist book. And although this book is almost 20 years old now, then the figure still nicely captures the idea of land system science, synthesis research, and how useful that approach can be for improving our understandings of things like drivers and processes of land use change, rates and patterns of land cover change, and long-term land use dynamics. But over the past few months, I have had some fairly depressing conversations, I would say, about the value of what I will now call more sort of like manual synthesis research. because people have basically told me that it's outdated. Because they say that there are now many dedicated AI tools, such as Consensus, that can synthesize literature and cases within minutes. But here I will say that we are currently a group of around 20 people who have spent months on one of these more sort of like traditional manual synthesis projects or reviews. And it's basically asking the question, how does commercialization in agriculture link to people's diets and nutrition? What we have done is to, like in the old-fashioned way, read the papers, code them with double coders, and so on. It has been an extremely time-consuming process. So I have to admit that I felt a bit devastated when I came to learn that within minutes or actually seconds, then these AI tools such as Consensus, they can basically produce a summary of all that work that took us months to go through. But then I have to remind myself of all the critical discussions also that went into building our code book. We discussed what actually counts as a commercialization within agriculture, what counts as a case of this topic, and so on. And I truly believe that this kind of critical reflection that has to be part of any type of synthesis research or synthesis work. So I also believe that when we ask the question, why do we need land system science? We also need to reflect on the synthesis approaches that have always been at its core. Because we need also to ask the question now, I think, like, has the time actually come to rethink them? And how do we combine these new AI tools potentially with critical discussions and reflections? So, on that note, I hope for some very interesting and potentially challenging discussions in the week of ahead. Thank you.
No, that was wonderful. And we can actually also do pop-up sessions. So if people want to have a session on the synthesis AI question, we can put that on the schedule. There's a few spots that it could fit in if people want to do that. And you could just add your comments on that idea to the hub, and Riley can collect those and we can organize something if you want. So thanks. That was really great. And so, yeah, I'm going to do just a little bit more updating for everyone on where GLP is now, some of the things that have been going on behind the scenes, particularly with the Scientific Steering Committee and the IPO, and kind of keeping us organized and moving forward. And so, as I was sort of saying at the beginning, why this week and why now? And, just based on what Laura has just been describing, our community, the land system science community, needs places to gather and synthesize and do, higher level work and act together. And I think as she pinpointed very clearly in her intro remarks, that the science is moving very, very fast in the Earth observation space, AI models, even on place-based research. There's so many new possibilities for the kind of work that we can do. Beyond what we could ever do before. And at the same time, the societal demand is growing, right? All of the issues that we know and care about continue to be important things that need to be figured out from multidisciplinary perspectives in terms of climate and biodiversity and food systems, land governance, energy transitions, justice, all depend on land. And this idea that no single institution, discipline, region, or method can hold the full picture. And it also, we find that, well, I found in my research was that it's very hard to be a jack of all trades. We have some very capable people in this community, but working together and collaboratively as a coordinated set of groups can really increase our impact. And so this week is sort of an experiment in making GLP visible to itself almost. We know that a lot of times not everybody can make the open science meeting, but we can come together. and in asking ourselves how this community can become a stronger home for the work ahead that is clearly important and needed. And so, this slide just to sort of say again where what Laura was saying about the kind of work that we do. These percentages, I'm not going to go through them all, but if you could just take a look at the slide, this is where our community says that most of its work lies, right? So we know that land is where these global challenges become lived realities. And we have people working in this 81%, 61% of our community says that they work in the climate and carbon space. And this is sort of related to our science plan and our previous science plans and some of the thematic work that we've always done as a community since our founding in 2006. 75% of our community identifies with working in the spaces of biodiversity, conservation, and ecology, 37 in telecoupling linkages and producer-consumer linkages and cross-scale interactions. We have almost 90% of our community that really is sort of the bedrock of land use, land cover change, sustainable land management, governance, tenure, issues of conflicts and livelihoods on land. And then the food, water, energy nexus being another really important area where our researchers converge. And then lastly, but not least at all in terms of the importance of integrating them, these ways of knowing and understanding in terms of different kinds of knowledge systems and how those interact in the work that we do and the meaning that we're able to derive from our science. And the network is held together by many forms of leadership. I mean, you hear a lot maybe about the IPO because, we have this small group here based at the University of Maryland, kind of running the everyday things. But we have this really dedicated, robust group of scientific steering committee members, also from all over the world. We have our fellows, which are the community of past leaders of GLP, dating back from the beginning, about 50 of them. We have several functioning nodal offices around the world. And you can see there on the map, Latin America, Europe, the United States. We have several in Asia, and possibly some new ones in the Mekong and Singapore. There's going to be a great session to try to see about launching potentially a new nodal office for Southeast Asia. So check that out on the schedule. We have this new early career network that Laura just mentioned before, our working groups, which are sort of the bedrock of thematic collaboration, and then our members from all over the world who organize a lot of really fantastic sessions for the week. So just as sort of like the at a glance that you can see this on our website, we have more than 3,000 researchers worldwide now, 15 working groups, and partnerships. We're starting to build more partnerships with global land policy and practice organizations. And then, yeah, we're really trying to build this and support the next generation of GLP because they are foundational to the future of the discipline. I'm not going to go super deep into this slide, but just to kind of give you a sense that every year the Scientific Steering Committee meets. This year we did not meet due to funding constraints, and we've had this meeting partly in lieu of having an in-person SSC meeting. But our SSC gets together and really kind of charts the frame, sets the frame and the agenda for the work that we do. And those map onto the way that the IPO works, right? So largely speaking, we have sort of three large theories of change. And these are sort of the pathways through which GLP creates impact across science policy and what we deem to have been really important thematically and worth our effort, education. So we have a science community set of activities and outputs. Those are the things that we focus on in terms of supporting all of you, having a science plan, having OSMs, a new journal we're going to talk about in the next session, and who all of our members being involved in driving that outcome. Our science policy theory of change, which has to do with science translation, co-production, building more sort of bridges between science and society, and we're working very hard on building that out. Importantly, less towards the top and more towards reaching out to regions and communities and societal actors that can use our support. And then lastly, education across the science community, but across, anyone, making it free and open with summer schools and eventually a learning management system that we're hoping to have, and then our early career network. And there's much more embedded in there, but just to give you a flavor for the kind of work that we're doing. And so, through that, the goal, and I think here at the IPO, what we really dedicate ourselves, our small team, into creating this connective tissue for our community to work. So to connect with each other, to convene, to create spaces for us to get together. I know online can be challenging, but it can also be really fruitful. Synthesis, which is, I think, a place where we need to really look at what we're doing and how we're doing it. And to amplify the work of the community. So many people are just in their own research doing such amazing things. And so trying to amplify that work, you can use us to do that. And we are also very willing in however we can to help make that work more useful to the people who can use it. So the goal is to support you all, not just as scientists, but part of this network. And so what do GLP members endeavor to do for the world? This is something that we've talked about and we've sort of built, and that's a little bit why GLP is not just a kind of classic scientific society, because there is this sort of underlying thread or sort of drive that members are generating knowledge for more just and sustainable land futures, that there's actually a normative dimension to the work that we do. And so we're working to understand change, we're working to illuminate the sort of trade-offs, competing claims, uneven impacts, uncertainties, and the choices that we have in society, and to support action across policy, practice, governance. And so, yeah, I think in all these different ways, and we look at it being not a centralized, but very decentralized way of working, where GLP members can collaborate and build the evidence and the methods and the relationships and the imagination needed to navigate these kinds of transitions. And so that is sort of, we're almost closing out, but I just want to give you a few practical um, bits of guidance, breadcrumbs before we begin, because I know that the hub is a brand new tool, the GLP hub, and sort of how our new website works. So practical notes before we begin. The session blocks. So the week is organized around A, B, and C blocks across these global time zones. So when you look at the calendar, which you can find online on the website. You can download a version on glp.earth. But then to actually register for the sessions, it's just one more step, and I'll show you that step. So there on the left, you're gonna look and see what time zones on the hub, which is sort of the middle picture. That kind of is what it looks like. You can see all of the events here. The next one will be the town hall on the community journal. And don't forget to use the little arrows, because you'll only see 3 sessions, but there's 18. So you can see that. And then you check here on the time zone converter. On the left, there will be what session block it is, and then converting hopefully into your time zone. And here, if you want to become a member of GLP and you're not already, otherwise you should just be able to log in if you're already a member. But click the Join Us button. You can become a member, and then you can jump right onto the GLP Hub that Riley has set up for the meeting. And so there you'll see this calendar, and you'll see all the events, and you can register. And so the formats are a mix of science sessions that are organized by the community or by working groups, um, town halls that are open to everybody. We try not to schedule concurrent sessions during those. And then there's also some open session. There's all open sessions. There's a few closed sessions. If you want to organize a closed group session and you need help and you want a link, whatever, just contact us at admin@glp.earth during the week. And you can sort of fit them into these blank spots we have. We wanted to keep the schedule quite open. And so, yeah, that's it. I think just to say that thank you for coming to the opening session, and the week really belongs to everyone here. Be present if it's your first time doing a GLP event, come to as many sessions as you can, ask questions, reach out to anyone you want to speak to. And we're going to do a survey at the end of the week. I'll send it out over the usual channels, and we'd love to hear your feedback so we can shape this week so that next year, or whenever we have it next, between OSMs, we can make it even better. So thank you so much, everybody. Cool. Okay. And so I guess what I should say is that in 3 minutes, the session starts for the journal. And if one of us can we can put it in the chat and we'll leave it on here. So if you want to just hop into the next session, you can do that. And I mean, if anybody we have 3 minutes left, but if anybody has questions or want to add anything, I'm going to turn it over to anybody who wants to say anything. And otherwise, I will see you in the next session. Thanks, everybody.